Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to the watercolor class. And I'm going to work on finishing this painting that I was doing. And so we'll just get to it right away. And so here we are with the piece. And as you can see, I went back into it and brought in the yellow brownish ochre color into this part of the picture as well. We'll take a quick look here at the picture that I'm working from. So here we have, this is Piggy's Cove. And so what I realized was this whole section was rocks and I thought it was grass. So I brought that in and filled that in. Now you can see I've used the yellow, this yellowish brownish color, which we don't really see in here. But that, as an artist, I'm allowed to make those decisions because I wanted it to feel warm. So I'm warming it up by using a much warmer color. Our first thought might be to use gray because we think rocks are gray. Maybe so, but I personally, as an artist, just find grays can really kill my painting. So I've warmed these up quite a bit. I'm going to leave out a lot of this detail. I just don't feel it's necessary. And for the time, and since this is just a demonstration painting, I'm not going to spend a lot of time putting that into it. Those details are really following the exact same principles of what we're doing. We would just simply spend more time with it if we want to get in those cracks and all of those layers. So so today we're just going to work at this, getting these rocks in. We'll lay in a little bit of grass. I've left out the fence. I've left out some buildings. One thing I really want to point out is the shadows on our building are not also gray. They really are blue. If we could isolate these colors on the lighthouse and the buildings on the shadowed side, we would see that they are blue. When painting, you really need to try to not think of shadows as gray and black. They're simply a darker, duller version of the color they are laying on. So our shadows on our roof are simply a dark, dull red. Okay, we can see it especially in this part here. Okay, and the more shadow it is, the darker it gets. It may feel like black. We might look at this and think black and grab the black, but you will really kill your painting if you do that. So try to avoid that. Okay, all right, let's get back to our painting here. First thing I'm going to do is use my eraser. I drew this line in with pencil to establish the shape of my highlighting shadow, but that's really going to be stuck there, and I want that to be a nice soft transition. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that. Again, you may have heard some art teachers or artists tell you that an artist never uses an eraser. Well, that's personal preference. There's nothing wrong with it. Okay, so I'm gonna, I just finished this. I'm gonna let my rocks dry a little more. I need to be strategic about what I want to lay down. I could lay in my water over here, but I know I have a tendency to work like this, and I will set my hand right in my water and mess things up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stay away from this right now because it's still a little bit wet. Let me grab my brush. This is still a little bit wet, so I'm not going to put in my green here yet. I think what I'm going to do is actually go into my rooftops. Okay, so we could see from the original picture, this side is in shadow and this side is in bright light. So I'm going to need a smaller brush because I'm working in small areas. So I'm going to switch to my much smaller brush here, but let me get my colors prepared. Remember, don't start painting until you have all your colors prepared. My lights or my highlights, my shadows, everything, okay? Now, if I want to make a dark, dull red, I actually need to use its complementary. So I would need a little bit of green. Too much, it'll go brown. Now, I don't want, these greens are really intense. So I'm actually just going to put a drop of green in here. I know I say don't make smears, but it is okay in some cases, especially this, where I want such a little bit, it's going to go in there. Now, the other thing, though, I always want my colors to be cool. So I'm going to choose one of my blues here to cool it down. And I'm just gonna go with our typical ultramarine here. I'm gonna get that ready, but just in case, also my cobalt, and get those colors ready. Get those stirred up. Again, get everything prepared. Get my reds all ready. Even a small little area like that, you can squeeze out that excess red so I don't dirty my water right away. Wash my brush, good. There's still a little bit of, there we go. So I have some red in there. Get my blues ready to go. I should really be testing these. So I grab my test paper. Yep, that looks like it's gonna be good. How about my cobalt? There it is. Let's check my cobalt. There we go. Squeeze out my excess so I don't drain it all into my water. Get over here, get that green ready to go. And all my colors are ready. And now I can begin. Okay, set my large brush aside, get my piece of tissue, Kleenex tissue ready to go. Set this aside. I've got the appropriate size brush, and I'm going to lay in my reds right away. Nice, bold, rich red. That's really a part of the attraction of this Peggy's Cove lighthouse scene. So spread that out. Go back, small little area, but drop in lots of paint. It's called charging it. Get it nice and bold. I can always remove it. It's much better, I find, to remove my colors once again. So get that nice and rich. Let me go and set my view here so you can see this. Okay, I'm going to use the same red. Paint the rest of my roofs here. Now these are all going to be in shadow, so I'm not going to charge it with too much paint because I'll be adding more paint now to it. Okay, right away, first thing I want to do is dull this down. So I'm going to grab some of my green. Okay, I want to make sure I'm testing my green, make sure it's dark. And very little bit, so I'm only going to drop in just a little bit. I can always add more. If I get too much, that's going to go brown. So I'm going to stop there. Hardly any in there. And now I can move this around. Whoop. Got to get some more. I sucked it right back up again here. Okay, so because everything's wet, I can relax. I don't have to panic that it's turning green. This one's doing much better because it's still nice and wet, and because I have my reds all ready, I won't have to waste time getting it ready, and I can drop my reds back in here and get this a nice rich but dark deep red. And now I want to keep it cool though. I want it to still feel shadowy, so I'm going to bring in a little bit of blue as well. And I've got to be careful because I can make this all go brown if I'm not careful. Because blue, I'm mixing my three primaries because there's a little bit of yellow and green, right? So I'm just dabbing at it, touching at it. It's getting faint. It's actually, it should be darker. My shadow should be darker than my highlight. Maybe what I want to do is lift a little out of my highlighted side, just a little bit. See, because it's still wet, I can lift that back out of there. And I'm going to get this a little richer red. Wipe that off. And move that around a little bit. Get a little more back again. Now, there we go. Now, I personally don't remember if the roof of the lighthouse was also red, but I'm going to make it red as well. And we're going to drop in, it's such a small area, I think I can skip the green. I'm just going to put some cool blue in there right away. Well, maybe a little bit of green. There we go. Okay, so get that dull on that side. A little too much, so I'm going to bring in a little bit of red. And I'm just going to touch it on that side. Now that's going to just creep across and make a nice soft transit gradation there. Okay, so I have my shadowed side of my roofs, darker and duller than my highlighted side on this side. Feels like I could even go a little darker yet. Now, because this is a demo and I really want to show you, but I should be careful in doing that. There we go. Now it's time to stop. If I keep going, and I do see, okay, I'm looking at this and I'm feeling that's still too bright. It needs to be dark and dull, okay? But if I keep fussing with this, I am going to ruin it because it's drying. And if you keep working, then you will ruin it, okay? It is much better for me to wait, let this dry, and then I'm going to glaze a transparent blue over top of that. And that's going to be a much better approach to it, okay? All right, I'm going to go ahead and paint my lighthouse right now. And because I want to show you the wet and wet technique. So, because I want that soft edge. Oh, but actually I better not, because if I come up to here, this is still wet. And if I put wet paint down, that's going to ruin my roof. So change of plans there. We're not going to do that. What we're going to do instead is see if we can get some texture into these rocks here. Okay, because that's really what I want to be able to show you, how to just dance around in there and get shapes very much like this, okay? So we'll probably dull this a little bit. It's a little bit, that's a personal preference, whether you like it light or, bright, like that's very, the intensity is very bright. Maybe it's a bit too much. So that's, again, a personal preference. Now I got my purple. Purple is complementary to yellow. This is predominantly yellow, so I want purple in there to neutralize that. I'm going to definitely use some of my Payne's Gray. Let me turn this so you can see the colors that I'm going to mix up here. Okay, so I have my Payne's Gray. I don't use a lot of it. It's a very, very bold color. So when you have a real bold color like that, don't mix it too much. Just a little bit, especially for this, because I do not want my shadow to look black. Okay, so just something like that, that's going to neutralize it nicely. And I want my blues ready to go, and I want my purples ready to go as well. I'm going to bring, no, I don't think I'm going to bring any other browns in there. I'm just going to dance around and get a bunch of shadowy textures in here, okay? So we'll work at that, get this all set up, make sure you can see well on the screen what it is I'm doing. So let's first establish some purples. Check my purple here, make sure it's not too bold. That's pretty bold, okay? That's a bit much. So what I will often do then, I don't want that. That's gonna be overkill. So I'm gonna actually take my brush, my large brush, squeeze that out. I'm going to suck up a little bit of my purple here, and I'm going to squeeze it out into here. Okay. Now this is a case where I don't want too much, and I want it more of a smear. Okay, because I want this faded. Smears aren't wrong. The problem is when you only work with smears of paint. Okay, so this I really have to control that this purple does not get out of hand. It's the complementary, and too much is going to overpower my piece. There we go. Okay, so you can see it's much lighter. That's what I want. I want it just a bit of a pale blue. Okay, so back to our painting here. So I'm going to work from the bottom up and just sort of dance this color around because I want to make these shapes of jagged sort of rocks. Okay, notice how often I dip in. I don't spread that out too much. And if I recall, this whole area really was in a lot of shadow, wasn't it? So, and I'm going to paint the whole thing. I'll let some of it show. Don't cover it solid. See, I leave some of the color underneath showing. And I want all my rocks to feel unified. So I am going to do them all. Now I got to be careful I don't go stick my hand in it again like I tend to do. Okay, so I'm getting all of my shadowy areas. Okay, so I'm really establishing my highlights and shadows. My highlights need to be lighter than my shadowed areas. Okay, and while this is still wet, because I love to have gradations of color happening within my shapes. So I'm gonna, this is making a bit darker, so it's gonna be a little bit more near the bottom. Again, make sure you do all the shapes. Ooh, that's a bit much. Okay, but we don't fret, we don't panic, no need to. I can just dip in and add some water to it, tone it down a little bit. And I have my tissue ready. Always have your tissue ready because I can always just lift. I can lift stuff out of there and create textures as well. Okay, so if you're using enough water, if you're using enough paint, you have the time. There's no need to panic. Okay, but you got to keep ahead of it. Okay, so this is really cooling that area down nicely. And I'm getting cool shadows. It's maybe a bit starting to take over the purple. I kind of really liked that purple in there, but oh well. That's what watercolor, that's one of the beauties of watercolor. You have to let it do its thing, and you're always learning. Every artist is always learning. I am anything but a perfect watercolorist because I spend so much time teaching. I've not done enough of it. That's a bit bold in that corner. So see that? I just grab a little bit and it just tones it down. I use even the tip of that. Okay. I'm gonna take a little bit of this Payne's gray. Okay, good. It's not too much. That's, again, this time I want a bit of a smear. And I'm just going to drop it in. Oh, that's too light. There we go. Okay, so this is going to really bold that out. And I always put it down in the areas really behind to really create depth. So I'm going to get this area, this rock, which is behind this one. I really want to get that dark, but don't cover. Notice how I dance my brush around, just because that will cause me to leave the areas underneath showing. And I can layer this. I don't try and get it perfect in the first shot. It's much better to be patient and layer this. And I can just keep doing this and doing this. Okay, and then I will work towards more detailed. And it really, it all depends on each person. How busy do you like it? So now I do want to keep these unified. This is, it's a bit too much contrast, and this almost feels like it's not a part of this. So I need to bring a little bit of this other color into here. So, because there's going to be some shadows in my highlights, right? So again, I'm working, so I'm just working with this Payne's Gray to tone this down. And, but I don't want it to get too dark because this is the highlighted side. And remember, painting is not about copying the picture. So don't get hung up on realism. I mean, we work towards understanding how to create realism, but you can get yourself, if you make too big a deal of it, you will frustrate yourself and you'll view everything you ever do as a failure, and you will miss beauty. You'll miss the joy of creating things that are beautiful. It's just shapes. Now I'm gonna lift a little bit of this out of here if I can. No, it's not gonna go. Okay, it's dried already, but that's okay. So I'm going to see if we can see this from a distance a little bit. Let me set that over there. I'll turn the camera so we can see that. Okay, it's always good to set your piece back, get that to stop and see it for a bit. So we're getting some texture happening there for sure. Okay, it is looking a little busy for my liking, but never judge it too soon. Let's finish the piece before we judge it. Okay, so I know my red's gonna be dry by now, and I can take a look. It's not shiny anymore. So now I can go in and I'm going to put in my soft shadows and also my shadows on the side of the building. Remember, those were blue. Those were not gray. So first of all, this is round, so it has to have a soft edge. So if it's soft edge, then it needs to be, look how gray that's looking already. Okay, I don't want that much. If it's soft edge, then it needs to be wet when I lay it in there. Okay, so I pulled that clear water. So that's just clear water in there. Bring a little bit of blue. And I'm just going to bring this straight up and down, all the way across. And it's actually created, that's nice, I think. Now it could be interesting to even drop in a little dot of this magenta in there, just to get a little bit of reflection. Warm that up just a hint, not too much. So subtlety and boldness, we want to work with, understand how to create both. Just as important to create subtle areas as it is to create bold areas. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Now I'm going to go into my buildings. I don't have to make this wet because my buildings, there's nothing round on there. So I don't have any soft edges. I don't need to worry about it. This is a hard edge because it's like a, whoa, that's no good. Have the tissue ready. Lift that up right away. Get that before it dries. Let's just spread it out, and no, nothing to fret about. We can always see. Again, if you're working with nice wet paint, you've got loads of time to move that around. Okay, so we've got our shadow there. I think I can darken that a little bit. I'm going to bring in the Payne's Gray so it still keeps it a bit neutral. Okay, this is creating some kind of fun textures on our building there too. Okay, now it's almost feeling a bit too gray, so just a little subtle blue in there, and have my, just in case, It's starting to feel maybe a bit too much. I can lift out a little bit. All right. Can't do my grass because it will leak into there. But I can do my gravel down here. And this is a area, if I can get this to work, if I could get this to dry brush, because of the style of art that I do, I don't do a lot of dry brush. Let me show you what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm just taking just a little bit. I want to dry brush over my gravel here, my gravelly beach. So I want to test this first in an area. Okay, see, so we're creating a texture there. That's what I'm trying, the effect I'm trying to get. So very little water. Now I want to work with the smear. And let's put this so you can see. Oh, it's a bit too much, not enough. Okay, I used it all up on my test there. No, I'll probably have it too much. No, there we go. So dry brushing, I find I can get much better dry brush effect if I use a flat than a round. And you have to work on a dry surface, of course. Don't try and do this on a wet surface. And I'll probably go back over that again with another color. I can dry brush into my water here. I'm gonna go with my dull, this very cool blue, almost a dull. Just feels like that would go with the feel of this place. Definitely with the color of our sky. Okay, I'm gonna work horizontally back and forth. Okay, and if I want to, I'm gonna just first lay in, let's get some more of that blue. Get it nice and dark. Typically, the water gets darker up at the horizon. Okay, but don't forget to dip in often. Okay, don't spread that out too far. It's going to dry faster. Now this is a case, of course, we don't mind getting our brush stroke showing. It's not an issue. And then here, we've got all our white water happening. So kind of dry brushing this in. And also, once again, I will let this dry and then I will put another layer over top of that. I will glaze another layer over top of that, okay? Yeah, this much texture is feeling too busy for me, okay? It feels like the whole bit needs to be unified. I'm not sure with what yet. Perhaps I'll just take some of that Payne's gray and go over the whole thing. But right now, let's bring in some nice bright green. So I'm just gonna pull some of my yellow up over here. Again, it's such a small area, so I don't have to make a big puddle of it because I need so little of it. And I'm gonna bring that into my smear of green. I have my blues ready. to get some shadow side. Lay this in quickly. And I'll finish that out later because I want to get some blue in here right away. I'm going to try this blue. I should test this before. I'm afraid this is going to make it a bit turquoise-ish. Yeah, okay, but that's okay. It's not bad. So I never fret. Even if I don't like the color I chose, I'm still going to spread it around because I want to keep it even. Excuse me. A little sneeze there. It's nice and bright. Okay, but I'm going to want that greener, a little more rich in how green that is. Okay. In the meantime, I can throw in a few sort of details here. I can paint in our windows and our door. I don't know why I did the door. It'd be more fun to have a red door. Let's get that out of there. Oh, now it's going to be in a purple door, I think. There. Okay. I'd have to go back. Let's take a look at this photo again. So I'm going to go to my screen share. Here it is. And let's look. Okay, so this is like a black. Yeah, so this lighthouse had a black roof, not a red roof. Not a problem. I'm allowed to make those changes. But this is kind of a very black area. Okay, so I'm going to paint that in and we'll see what we're going to do with this. Okay, while we're at it, let's take a look at this. I left out a lot of these other details of these rocks back here, but the distant land, you can see is very, very blue-green. Just a little bit of green showing, very blue. It's called atmospheric perspective. Every time things fade into the distance, they turn blue. So we're going to come back to here and we're going to bring that in to the piece. But before I do that, let's get some of this area here on our lighthouse. So let's just put this in. Let's charge this side here by dropping in. See, I just keep dropping in a heavy amount. Now I wipe my brush off. And let's lift some back out of this side, okay? And it's gonna flow. So I need to do it again. I need to do it a few times. And even at this time, I'm just gonna find something here to prop my painting on an angle, even more of an angle, to keep that flowing. So you'll see sometimes you have to lift it a few times. And we'll get this darker on that end. Yeah, it's really not letting. There we go. Now I end up with too much. So let's get rid of some of that. There we go. Okay, so nice and dark on that side. It's going to flow because it's wet. You can see it traveling a little bit to the left there, but not too far. And I want to keep that because this is my highlight and my shadow. So we'll leave that alone. Something messy happened here. Can we remove that? Can we fix it and turn it into a happy accident? I don't know. That's one of the things about doing a demo is you tend to go faster than you would normally if you're doing a painting. Okay, let's get some richer greens. So what I'm doing here is taking my, let's forget, is that my sap green? Yeah, it's my sap green. It's not too much because it's very, all my greens are very rich. So I've got just a little bit here. Come back. And I think I can take my pen over here. I don't think so I got to keep an eye on that lighthouse there. Okay, hopefully you can see what I'm doing. I'm gonna put some of this green If it's still a little wet, that'd be awesome, because then it would kind of try to flow up there, and I would get a nice bright highlight and the deeper green, deep rich green shadows here. Okay. It's probably really good if you're trying to do a painting like this, just pause the video now and then, try something on your own, go back to it again. All right, so I've got some really nice highlight there. I could soften it. I was going to go in there and wet that and soften it, but I actually like the shape that it's created, so I'm going to leave it. Okay, we're going to leave that alone. Now, what am I going to do about my rocks here? Do I want to bring in some more of my Payne's gray to dull it all down? I'd like to cool it down with blue, but the only problem is my blue and my yellow, I'm afraid, is going to go too green, which I don't like that. Also, it's still wet enough that I really think I need to leave it alone yet. I don't think it's time to go to this yet. I'm afraid I'm gonna lose everything, and it turns to mud, and the colors run, and lose some of the busyness, which I don't like the busyness. But yeah. All right, I'm gonna go back, and I've got this big smear here. I'm gonna really mix that up now with my larger brush, get this real rich color to finish out the C there. Okay, this is why it's always worth keeping. I never wash my palette all the time. I do now and then if it just gets too much. If I run out of room, basically, once all my areas are dirty, then it's time to clean up. But otherwise, it's good to use it back again. All right, here we go. So let's just, I'm gonna test my color. I'm thinking this is a bit much. Oh, we got a big lump on there. I don't know what that is. Sometimes I think it's just dust. I don't know. All right, so hopefully the idea is that I will still see my separations, and this is not all going to blend together. So this is where I want to spread this out. Okay, good. Okay, continue working horizontally. There's one of those little dust particles. That's the problem with that. I should probably close my palette more. All right, and let's just spread this out. So you can see I don't refer to my photo as much as I used to. Also, if I wasn't doing this on a computer, I would use it more. It's where my information is, but I'm kind of forced to do this now. Okay, I'm going to try and create, that effect that you get from the waters going back and forth. And I'm going to try to create that effect of playing. Here's the pure white water. So I'm kind of dabbing at it. This is why you want a nice big brush that comes to a point, so I can still work a large area. Okay, so I can lay this in, get some bolder, richer at the top, and then leave that. Okay, I'm going to use a nice light blue here, really pale And I'm going to throw just a little bit of blue into my whites. That's a bit too much though. Dry my brush off, so we'll just pick some right back up again. Okay. You never want a vertical line happen when you're painting water. Or if you did, you'd want so many that they become a horizontal pattern once again. All right. To keep the unity, I'm tempted to use this same blue in my rocks here, but I'm also afraid that it's going to take on too much of a, it's going to look like water. I do like the idea of keeping it unified. Blue, what I think I'll do is I'm going to first put a very faint layer, transparent, and glaze a layer of orange. Why would I do it? Because orange is going to keep it warm, but orange is also the complementary of blue, and that's better than the yellow because the yellow will make it go green, and I don't want that to happen. So you'll notice as I paint, I respond to what happens. I can't predict the whole thing. Planning is very important, but don't over-plan because different things happen. And you learn to work with what happens. That's how you stop yourself from throwing everything away when it didn't go how you wanted it to. Otherwise, my goodness, it's hard enough as an artist to be unsatisfied with your work. We all know that. So, I'm thinking I might bring that orange into here as well. That will warm it up. It's going to neutralize it as well. So let's get ourselves very, okay, because that'll also help. Yeah, I think that might work. That's how you learn. It's all about experimentation, right? Part of the reason is I keep getting drawn to this warmer side here. And I'm liking that, just how that looks. So let's just glaze this orange, spread it out because I don't want it to go too orange. It doesn't have to be a solid. Yeah, that may work. And because then I think what I might do is go over it all with some blue as well but this will also help unify my highlights and my shadows together. Hopefully take out some of the busyness. And again, sometimes I think it's good to not look at my photo anymore. Sometimes it's a balance of back and forth. Using the photo to help you, like you don't ignore realism completely. At least all the artists, all the abstract artists, those first ones who started out, well, everyone was always abstract. And the ones who got serious abstract, they knew how to paint realism. Too many people do abstract simply because they don't know how to do realism. Oops, that's a bit much. Quick, lift that out. There we go. I like that. You can talk to your piece. I have a very good friend, Navajo Christian. He has a blast when he does his watercolor. Giving thanks to God for water, laying it in there. This texture really, wow. Look at all that now. I see why I don't normally work with so rough, but it's also because of the type of work I do. And now I'm really liking this warm. It's almost starting to feel like, okay, so I'm purposely gonna just kind of lay that in, leave that a bit smeary, streaky. So what happens if I bring a little bit of this blue? Okay, same blue in my ocean. If I bring some of that down here, what does that do? Does it go too green or not? Does it help? You only know by testing it. When I studied in college, our profs always told us to approach your piece as if you're planning on throwing it away when you're done. Not to make us careless, but to get us to loosen up, be free, to experiment, to try. I mean, you do your best. You always do your best. But otherwise, it's so much fear. You're so afraid. If everything you do, you think has to be hung up on a wall to have any value to it, but someone has to buy it or it was a waste. That's a real fallacy. Okay. Compositionally, I think I need a little bit of dark down here. Maybe not quite that dark. I don't like that spot in there. Oh, I forgot to do my blue-green hill back here. Almost thought I was done with this. Okay. That's maybe a bit too green. Yeah, it's a bit too green. Let's lift a little bit out. And bring a little bit of blue into there. And that's my distant hill, my blue-green. All right, let's see if I can angle my camera so we can see this a bit straighter. Okay, so we see some real texture happening over here. And yeah, I stayed horizontal to feel like sand. Okay, this feels very much like rock. We've got highlight and shadow areas happening all through here. Subtle shadow happening up here. I didn't actually go into here. I don't think it's necessary, that part of the lighthouse. I think I would actually darken my shadow here. I think that will be more interesting. So let's glaze in another color. That will create some better contrast. Sometimes the best thing you can do is to set your piece aside and not look at, whoa, look at that. My roof was still wet. And now I'm actually getting the color I wanted. How happy are we with that? Now we're getting a nice bold shadow color, which we also need here. Okay. Need to do the chimneys here, I suppose. Maybe they should be red. I'm not sure what color. I feel like we need to have a window. Why would we not have any windows on this side of the house? I don't understand. So few windows there. Okay, I'm going to set this up so you can see it from a distance. Put that over there. And now we can see our piece. Okay, so highlights, shadows, the whole bit. Come a little bit closer. Okay, texture in our water. All right, so this is what we're always looking for. Well, not always exactly like this, but just that working out the variety and unifying things. Okay, that's always the key so much. Keep that variety, all right? Keep good contrast. Contrast draws attention to itself. We have the most contrast happening here, which is exactly where we want to be. We have very minimal contrast here, so our eye doesn't get drawn out to these boring areas. Okay, remember how I said by bringing in that pink would help draw the eye over to here. Okay, in the end, I kind of like the texture that happened. It feels very rough. The texture of the paper helped a lot with that. I think if I were to do this again, I might leave out that line there. Okay, so I've simplified a lot, but I have it happening there. It's not my best watercolor I've ever done, but I trust it will be enough to help you get an idea how to work on yours. So, all right. How long did that go? Can I see? No, I don't know how long my video went, but hopefully that was good enough to give you guys an understanding of what to do. All right, and you can look at this and try your own. And yeah, give me some comments, show me your pictures that you're doing. So very good to be able to do this with you guys again. And thanks for being my participants along with me. See you guys. Happy painting.